different generations, journeys, and professional backgrounds. So can each of us tell you how we got to this point on the stage? How did you get into this industry? And Melinda, I'd like to start with you because you didn't take the most traditional path.
No, I definitely did not take the traditional path. I've been in entertainment, as many of you know, for over 40 years, 44 to be exact. Yeah. And so, but, as we're finding out, a lot of actors many of us are famous, but not all of us are rich. And so I was going through a period in my life that was, somewhat of a dark gray. I was having what I call my gray period. I was in my gray Uggs and my gray, yeah, and not quite a depression, but a low period. Life has peaks and valleys, and I was in a valley. And in the valley, as you know, is where you meet God. And I got in that valley and I said, what do I need to do to get out of this valley? Show me the way out. And what I was getting in my spirit, in my soul, was that if you want to see something different, you're going to have to be something different. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know quite what that means, but I was in the bookstore in Barnes and Noble, and HTML for Dummies fell off the shelf, which is hypertext markup language. It's like very basic coding language. I taught myself how to code. I taught myself CS, a few programming languages, and I started building websites for some people that you know, but I wouldn't let them pay me. I said, because I just want to learn. I just want to know how to do it. I just want to know that I can. And it wasn't so much learning to code that was transformational for me. What was actually transformational for me was understanding that I was resilient. And it was through technology that I changed, that my trajectory changed. And that's why it is now what I advocate for.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like, give it a round of applause. I love that because, Angel, you have been deemed the next Steve Jobs, am I wrong?
Something like that.
So I need to know how you got that title and what brought you to the tech industry.
Wow, I really don't get that question that often. So long story short, years ago at the burgeoning infancy of sort of this Black tech movement, Google gathered together 30 of the top Black women in tech for the first time. And they hosted a competition amongst us. And, a little girl right here might have won first place. And I was deemed the number one Black woman in tech. And there was a lady by the name of Jerry Single. She was one of the judges, and she came up to me afterwards, and she said, I'm going to write an article on you. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's be so cool. That was it. 3 months later, I was extremely broke, trying to figure out what I was going to do, had just left a really rough situation, and I actually had went back to my mother's house for like a month. So this is day one back at my mother's house. We met when I was 18. And my Facebook is going off crazy. And I finally look and I see what is going on. Why? And I have been named the next Steve Jobs by Forbes. And my life has never been the same since. It has not been the same since. Obviously, I went ahead and got out my mother's house. And it's been really cool.
I love that because you two, it was a little non-traditional on your side. You didn't take the traditional path, but you two did. So I'd like to hear about the paths that you take, and you're literally bridging the generations of tech because you got started late and you got started early. So let's start with you, Leah.
Awesome. First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Melinda, I love the story of you being in the valley, peaks and valley, but you didn't buy property in that valley. So that's what we always talk about. Don't buy no property.
Don't do it. Yes. No, I didn't.
I started off, I got my computer science degree back in 1960. It didn't work. Oh, darn. Back in the day, but I started off as a dance major. My father was like, Leah, really? I was like, but I'm a great dancer. And he was like, yeah, you are, but you're also many things. Because I had been coding since I was 12. But I didn't see anybody in the tech. There was no tech industry when I started. And I didn't even see that as a valid pathway for a career. But I did see, Dance Theater Harlem, Alvin Ailey, and I was like, that's where I want to be. He's like, but you're many things. And I was like, whatever, Daddy, and I twirled away. And then after years of doing many different things, I ended up landing on computer science. So I graduated with my comp sci degree in the early 90s. And then I started working for Anderson Consulting, which is now known as
Accenture.
Accenture, right? Exactly. Which stands for Accent on the Future. And then from Anderson, I actually worked in the World Trade Tower for a while, coding mainframe JCL. And then I moved out to California and I started working with PeopleSoft. I was a software developer there for many years. And then I moved over from software development to teaching because I just found that developing was so isolating and I really wanted to connect with people. And I was first generation in corporate America. So my father was a professor, my mother was a teacher. So I came from educators. So I started becoming an educator inside corporate America. And I really believed that's where I was going to be for the rest of my life, teaching technology in corporate America. Oh, okay. Amazing, there we go. Amazing mentor, Adam Hillman, who told me you need to be outside and try working more in the executives. And I was like, I don't know about that. But one day I moved out of faith, not fear, and I stepped into it. And then next thing I know, I'm now SVP at a Fortune 500 company running developers across 90 countries.
It's not easy, y'all. Give that a round of applause. And Dia? So it's so interesting. We have very, very similar stories. I think we're yeah, exactly. So my career into technology probably started, unlike most people, I got a computer for an award for having high achievement scores in reading and math in the third grade. And most of you probably have no idea what this computer is, but it was a very old Commodore VIC-20, and that was that was my first computer. It was very basic. We all carry more technology and power in our pockets on our phones than that was at the time. The reason why that was important is because I decided that I was going to be a computer engineer, and that exposure to technology for me was what changed a world for me and created a new opportunity, because my family was a family of teachers and I swore out that I would never teach. And I don't know where I got the idea of being a computer engineer, because at that particular time, women were most advocated to be teachers, a nurse, maybe a nurse, but certainly a homemaker. And I didn't know anybody that was a technologist, let alone a computer engineer. So I had this great idea, changed my trajectory of my life. I'm not even sure what I wanted to be before that, but it's been technology ever since. So I went to Spelman College and studied computer science and computer engineering, graduated with my computer science degree and minor in mathematics, and then went on into technology. And I've been working at the edge of every sort of technological period. So whether that was the internet, the semantic web, mobile devices, then cloud, and now AI. I have always been at the forefront of technology and working with organizations that have been moving in. And so, for me, and I talk about this a lot, exposure is everything, right? It was that exposure to a computer at in the third grade that created an opportunity for me that I didn't know existed and changed my life forever, allowed me to get out of the South Bronx and in Harlem and move into opportunities that I had never had imagined. And I think that kind of exposure is the kind of thing that we continue to advocate for. And I say we, because not just me, but folks like those at the table, but also the company. Can you kind of speak to climbing the ladder and being a Black woman in a very risky space? Because we still see women making history for being the first to earn certain degrees. So can you talk about being a woman in computer science and computer engineering?
Well, it's probably no different than anything else that we hear, right? Computer science, technology, AI, there are low numbers of representation for people of color and women as well in those spaces. And because I talked about the fact that, my books, the books that I read, the stories that were told were all about a woman finding a man and living happily ever after, or being the homemaker, then there wasn't any or very few examples of people that looked like me in spaces that I was aspiring.
And I'm a person of faith, so how did I navigate that was because I believed that there was an opportunity in space that God was calling me into that I continued so and believe that there was so much more for me. But I can't say that I had intention at the time. It is looking back that I now understand that I had an inner confidence that I continue to strive for, and I wanted something different than that which I experienced. So that's what brought me through. That's what got me beyond that. But I think now when I look at the young people that are coming into the company, the dozens that I mentor, it is having people that look like you in positions that you aspire to let you know that it's possible. And then having that mentorship as well as sponsorship in those places in order to create space for them. And that's what I am committed to being because I didn't have that when I was.
Can we pause and talk about the mentorship and sponsorship difference? Because I feel like so often we know what mentorship is, but we don't know what sponsorship is in our community specifically. And either you or me or anyone needs to that.
Yeah, my climb in corporate America, there was no blueprint. I came from like educators. It was the first time I was in an environment. It was the early 90s, so it's very different than what it is now. And I remember, and I don't know why, maybe because I came out of the 90s, it was like, Public Enemy fighting for power, right? I was wearing a backpack and I wore skort to work. It wasn't okay, but I did. And I remember being at a meeting and they were talking about diversity back then. And I was like, what are y'all doing about NAACP? Are you working with NAACP to bring in people? They were like, there was this one woman was like, who is that woman with the skort on and the bright orange toenail? I was like, just going on. She pulled me aside and was like, listen, you're clearly brilliant as she would be. I was like, of course I am. I'm silly. But today, this woman is one of my biggest mentors and sponsors. She saw something in me, like, she was like, I need to keep you here. You clearly don't know how to navigate this space. And so I'm going to help you. Her name is Nelly Guerrero. She is just amazing. And she helped me. And that was, like I said, in the early 90s. And so now I try to pay that forward in a lot of ways as well. So I think it's important having mentorships that are authentic, but I also am an advocate where I have seats at tables where many others do not. So I look at things with a different lens. I'll give you a very specific example. We were recently going through releasing of RSUs, restricted stock units. And that's really how you build generational wealth, one of the ways. And I looked at across our table and I go, there are no people of color who are eligible for RSUs. Nobody else would have picked that up in that room, except me, because that was the eye which I was looking at. So being able to bring up that conversation, so it may not be out the forefront, fight the power, but it's in a different way. I'm at the table and I'm using that experience to help advocate for folks that aren't in there and helping to build their future. So there's small ways, even if they're not necessarily so small, but they may not be as loud.
I love that. I love that. And give it a round of applause. Don't hesitate. Question is for you, Melinda. Now, we didn't all take traditional paths, as I keep mentioning, but can you speak to why it's important that the Black community knows about the tech careers that can benefit our community in the future?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when new technology emerges, we tend to fear it, right? We think it's going to take something from us or take away from where we're heading because we had a plan, right? We had a mapped out plan, and we're not necessarily willing to be flexible and change with the new emerging technology. Even take entertainment, for instance. A lot of us in entertainment were afraid of the streaming channels, like the traditional sort of style of presenting or distributing content. I recently founded the Arise and Shine Foundation, and we put up our first project initiative, our first program, which is called the ESTEAM Project. And ESTEAM is an acronym for Entrepreneurship, Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. And it is a program we did for young women at HBCUs. Now, one of the things that we wanted to do for these these young women is build a foundation in confidence. The reason why I was able to, teach myself to code is because I came out of my mom and dad's house confident, right? And so it's one thing to give them the training, but you really also must give them the foundation in confidence. And that's not just for our youth, that's for our community at large. We have to be able to educate them. We have to share the information, the RSU information, which is like the best kept secret that we don't know how to build generational wealth. So it's important for us to share the technology. And I always say, for Black women, we have always been the technology, right? We've always been innovators. So there's no reason we get to this point where technology is now advancing so quickly, and then suddenly we stop getting involved. Like suddenly we're not the technology anymore. Like we're not the leaders. No, we are. We're the drivers. We're the drivers.
And Angel, being the next Steve Jobs, I'm sure you took that and ran with it. So can you speak to the projects like Credit Rich and finding the first neobank? Tell us what that is, one, and how you use that to benefit our community specifically.
Yes, I think your first point is very important. The fact that I took it and ran with it. I have a TED Talk that I do called The Billionaire Blueprint, and it's based off of Jack and the Beanstalk. And I think that one of the biggest things that people miss in that fable is the fact that he took the golden eggs and he came back and took the golden egg. No one is going to hand you anything. He had to actually climb up that beanstalk and he had to take what he needed. And so when I got named the next Steve Jobs, I sat there for a moment and I said, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to, because I'm actually an introvert, people don't guess that, but I've lost 100 pounds, okay? Congratulations. Thank you. So I used to look a little different. So by nature, I'm a researcher. I like to keep my head down. I do the work and this, that, and the third. I never planned for my name to be international. That was not a specific goal of mine. I planned on being historic, but I never planned on being famous. And so once that was bestowed upon me, at the time, I always have to have a need for what I'm doing, and it always has to relate to God. And at the time, they were trying to get away, they were trying to remove HBCU funding. At the exact same time, a proud Hamptonian had been named the next Steve Jobs. So if you go back and you trace my history, I wore the exact same outfit for 3 years straight. Wow. I wore a shirt, and I have like 100 of them, but I wore a shirt that said Black Tech Matters, black pants, and my Hampton 40 on the 40 jacket. And therefore, I did a few things by doing that. I put over $100 million into startups and small businesses across the world. I got named one of the top 5 most influential people in the world by the United Nations. Supposedly, I helped kick off civil rights movements across the world because they did not experience the Jim Crow era like we did here. So by me traveling internationally and speaking about tech equity, that provided these different cities across the world an opportunity to be able to have their civil rights moment. As well as we did the largest Black hackathon in partnership with MIT, where MIT was able to go off and raise $100 million. A part of that hackathon was on healthcare, where we exposed things like Black maternal death rates, which is now a mission of Kamala Harris. So there's so many things that Black Tech Matters has been able to do as a result of me taking this title and letting the world know that yes, I was birthed at an HBCU, and you have made me the next Steve Jobs.
Come on.
So what does that say about HBCUs? Period. I was very clear about it. So after I helped change the world a few times, I decided, just a couple times, once or 6. And so I decided to focus a little bit more tactically as opposed to strategic. At the time, I had invented the first financial literacy mobile game. People also don't know that I invented the idea of selling life insurance and financial products online as well as to youth. And I sold that to Prudential when I was 22. 22, and it was considered groundbreaking at the time. So that was actually the first time I was in Forbes. Because it was she's talking that talk. I'm just okay. Question. Okay. Goals. Okay. So from there, I created the first financial literacy mobile game, grew that to a $350 million acquisition offer. They offered it to me way too easily. And I said, how much is it really worth? So I decided to extrapolate the algorithm, turn it into a standalone fintech product. I approached Experian, became the first Black person to partner with a credit bureau. And then I went to Visa and I turned it into a bank. And now I'm the first Black woman to all Black women introverts. Visa, just name drop that. Okay. We have to pivot. I have to come back over here. I'm overwhelmed. Okay.
My next question is for you, Dia. Can you speak to some of the innovation and the work that you're doing at Amazon that is creating an inclusive future for the Black community? And I kind of want to get into the work you're doing with AI, so I'd love to hear that. So I'll speak specifically to the work that I've been doing. I've been at Amazon a little over 7 years. And one of the interesting things about Amazon is that we have this culture they talk about where our leadership principles drive the work that we do and the way that we engage, and we're customer obsessed. But then also we have this leadership principle that talks about thinking big. And the idea is that not only, not just our leadership or our senior leaders are reserved to be able to think and innovate, but anyone can. You can think big about an idea and be able to present that, write a narrative or post about it. And so back in 2019, my thought was that we should be doing more to engage our customers on understanding the potential risks of AI and actually helping them in assisting them with those risks. So what that meant was I basically had to write a proposal and provide justification for why this was important. Now, I have personal reasons why I believe that's important. We all have heard about the ways in which AI has the potential to exacerbate existing inequalities. We also understand that AI has the potential to, or is poised to, increase the wealth gap even greater than the internet did during our time. And so what does that mean? It means that there's an opportunity, one, for us to shift the landscape, and why not do that at one of the biggest technology companies that exists with over 1.5 million employees, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of customers that we get to influence and impact. So that Think Big project for me was to start a customer-facing practice on responsible AI. Responsible AI is essentially what I just mentioned. How do we reduce the potential for harm? How do we reduce and make sure that the systems that our customers are building that impacts all of you are actually ones that will work for us, will include us, and not ones that will replicate inequality or bias or harm. And so at this point, we've worked with over hundreds of customers that have affected or impacted more than 2 million, or I should say, hundreds of companies that have impacted more than 2 million end consumers, or consumers like you all, end users. And we continue to do that work, not just here in the US, but also globally. And then I get, as part of that, now that we've started that, to be able to work with legislators here in the US and in EMEA and in Europe as they think about the ways in which to control or contain AI, and the way that we can drive more inclusion and safety as companies and even governments are looking to use that technology.
I love how you're speaking about AI in a positive way, because it does have the potential to create jobs as well, but should we be worried that it could take our jobs?
Well, I think AI is like fire, right? Fire can warm your house. It can also burn it down. So how we lean into AI and make sure we're all part of this new transformative technology, so that we're all educated, so very important. I don't know if it's my voice. Just keep going. Is it me? I'm not just blowing out my ranks. Okay. But I think it's just so, it's so important that we all lean into this technology and we take whatever that step is to learn it. Me personally, I'm super excited about it, but I'm also a geek in that way. So I started taking a whole other class online. I'm coding in Python, writing algorithms into not very good, but I'm still doing it. The point being, I'm trying to learn how we're embedding algorithms into our code, because a lot of times people think technology, they think devices, but technology is also software. So there's so many facets of this. Will it eliminate jobs? It will definitely reduce some jobs, right? There's going to be things that are going to be automated out. It's also going to augment a lot of jobs. For example, I listened to this amazing podcast called The AI Show, and they talked about how this doctor uses Analyse.ai, which scans x-rays to come up with diagnosis. So they're using it in conjunction with their own diagnosis. So they're looking at it, but the AI might recognize something that they didn't see. And in that case, that's wonderful. Another use case that Dee and I were talking about backstage is there's this gorgeous, gorgeous supermodel. I'll give you her name and Instagram handle. Beautiful, chocolate skin. And she's a supermodel. She's been on the cover of Vogue. She's booked campaigns, and she's advocating for more diversity in the fashion industry. However, she's not real. So who's getting paid behind her? The creator of it. But guess who the creator is? It's a white man. Yeah, so I'm saying we've got to get our gas on this pedal and jump in and really start learning this technology.
Let me just offer one thing, right? Because Leah is talking about going in and learning code and starting to write. But one of the advantages that we have because of this shift in generative AI, and people have been talking about ChatGPT, is that you don't have to get into code in order to start understanding AI and generative AI and what that means. That there are so many applications and ways in which you can just use natural language, the way that we're talking on the stage now, to provide descriptions that you can start to expose yourself and to learn. It doesn't mean that you have to learn coding.
It's just me
But
coming
the challenge, but the word of encouragement, as you mentioned, is that we can't be fearful. Melinda, you brought this up as well, because those of us, those that are fearful will miss an opportunity to engage, miss an opportunity to have an impact, and certainly miss an opportunity to drive what is necessary in this era. And the last question I'm going to ask is, clearly you've all made it into the industry, so what can we be doing to empower the next generation to be prepared for emerging technologies like these? And what is the advice that you have? Like, one of you can take this question, or maybe two, but it's our last question.
I don't want to be the only one, you got it. But I will just kind of double down on AI, encourage our community and the next generation to lean into AI, right? Because it's only, the system is only going to put out what we put into it. And if we're not contributing our experiences, if we're not contributing our stories, because we're all unique, then it's not going to be reflected back to us through the technology.
So the other thing that I will offer, and I just want to make a plug, of course, I work for Amazon, AWS, Amazon Web Services, but Amazon has committed a lot of energy as well as resources in order to engage our communities. One is AI Ready, an initiative that's intended to educate 2 million individuals in AI skills by the year 2025. Courses are offered free online. We also have an AI ML scholarship program for young people who are interested to help draw in the next generation of diverse technologists so that they can be a part of influencing the technology. And that work, those 2 programs are just an example of that, but we have a number of other initiatives that we've been to be able to drive the involvement and the influence of those Black and brown voices in the technology in a way to help create the sort of equitable movement that we need to see in technology.
And I would add, Salesforce also has a free online learning platform. I want all y'all to write it down, trailhead.com, where you can go in and learn all about AI, you can learn about AWS, you can learn soft skills, all for free. So there are resources out there for you to easily get in. You don't have to code, that's just me, but there's other things that you can do.
It sounds
And I
like
will add, for everyone to be kind to each other and for Black women not to make the ice colder, we need to uplift each other and work together.
I love that. And that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation. I feel like the future is in good hands. So thank you for being Black women and ushers other Black women into the
Thank
space.
you for the amazing
Thank you.
Thank you.
The following leaders, please report backstage. Again, following leaders, please report backstage. Randall Moulton, Michael Turner, Jaden Williams, Rosalind